A listener warning. Please be advised that this episode contains content that may be disturbing to some listeners, including descriptions of violence. There is also one account of animal cruelty at about the 24-minute mark. If you wish to skip this moment, please fast forward 5 minutes. Listener discretion is advised.
Life upon the wicked stage ain't ever what a girl supposes.
I'm Jen.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Olivia.
And we are, in fact, 3 different people.
This podcast focuses on true crime under the spotlight of arts and entertainment. So grab your beverage of choice and settle in.
Places, ladies.
Here's our episode.
Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, hey, we're back.
Here
And
she is, world. Here she is, boys. It's the real life Mama Rose.
Olivia's getting right to it today.
For those who are not watching any sort of video iteration of this, can you please describe to our wonderful listeners your ensemble today, because it is glorious.
I was like, this is a special story. And so I had to just go for it. So I'm wearing a blood red lace blouse, which has rose like appliques on it and matching lips and some fringe dangle earrings and a sparkly rose headband. So I am embodying a little bit of Mama Rose today.
Rose's turn, indeed.
Rose's turn.
It is Rose's
indeed.
turn.
Yeah,
it
which
is Rose's turn.
What we're talking about today, if you haven't read the title of the episode. Rose, baby.
And let me tell you, she was a real mother. But
Oh. I love it.
Yeah, so I thought I knew a little bit because I read Gypsy's biography a few years ago, and it's very entertaining. It's a quick read if anyone's interested, her biography.
Yes,
and I
for
thought,
sure.
yeah, and it revealed some stuff about Mama Rose. The fact that she was suspected of murder, which is an attempted murder, which is really interesting. And I thought, wow, that's cool. Let's research that. So I ordered this book that I have to highly recommend. It's called Mama Rose's Turn. It is...
Turn. I love it.
It is researched by this woman, Carolyn Quinn, who she's a member of the Ziegfeld Society and is a historical researcher. That's like what she does. So this is delicious, this book. I got it on Amazon. And it's the true story because I was looking. My research started with the Wikipedia, which is, it's a first stop. It's never where you want to end,
Absolutely.
but it's a first stop.
It's a first stop. Try to
a
get all
good
your
high
thoughts
level
together.
pass.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a
notes.
high level pass. And it mentioned this biography. And I was like, oh, I had not heard of this biography. And it's the true story of America's most notorious stage mother. Yeah, it's this woman, the research she has done, it is a combination of historical articles, of newspaper pieces, of divorce records, and interviews with the living family. So She has done her research. I hope you all are ready to dive in.
Oh my God. I cannot wait.
I will just say, without having any more context than that, I'm coming into this so fresh because I know Mama Rose Gypsy, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And I will just say, I'm like, why did we not get a sequel or some sort of alternate version of Gypsy with just this plot line? My God, Gypsy is a rich text all on its own, but they really buried the lead here because I'm already so captivated by this.
I know.
Yeah.
They really did bury the lead. It's not about the stripper. Let's talk about Rose,
it is
please.
about this woman, and I think it's become my new life mission to write a play just about Mama because
We talked about this at breakfast the other day, to be totally candid. I
Listeners,
said,
you heard it here first, listeners. This is happening now. I'm so invested. Louise is I took off a glove once and sit down. Mama's got murder
sit
to
down.
unpack.
It's Rose's turn. Yeah.
Mama's getting hot. Mama's got a shotgun. Yeah. So what's interesting is the musical Gypsy is based off of Gypsy's version. It's slightly based off of Gypsy's version of her life. But Arthur Lawrence, when he was coming up with the concept and everything, he felt like Gypsy's story wasn't quite as juicy, which is like you just said, Ashley. You took off the gloves. Sit down. So...
And Arthur Lawrence was the lyricist, the writer, right? been a while.
He was the playwright, so he wrote the book.
Playwright.
Yeah. And Sondheim, it was his Fig musical, was brought in.
I just lost my equity card just then.
Bevis Stevens. Yeah, it was like Gypsy and West Side Story. We're like early Sondheim.
Right, yeah. Early. I think he had just come off West Side Story, when this one was happening. But Arthur Lawrence, when he was reading through Gypsy's notes, and because Gypsy and June were alive when this musical was being conceptualized, and he was like, well, I think we need to really focus on the mother, because the story that June tells of her mother, and Gypsy somewhat, is very overbearing and stage mother of all stage mothers. Then when they got Ethel Merman on board, they really leaned into her type, that big brassy, commander.
Yeah.
Ah! So that's where a lot of Mama Rose's personality came from in the musical.
Quick side note story.
Yes.
When I was in school, one of my professors, he was the chair of the department at the time. Shout out Richard Kagi. It's my birthday buddy. And lighting designer, costume designer, he was the technical guy, and he's brilliant. And he was talking about once when he walked into a theater to do some lighting, and Ethel Merman was up on the stage singing away. He said she's just singing and flapping her arms. He goes, everything's
incredible,
flapping in the wind. And it was the most glorious moment. I was sitting there. It was like our final exam. Yeah, I'm using air quotes here because we all went to dinner. That was our final exam. And he told us stories, and it was the greatest 3 hours. But yeah, so he saw her going all her glory.
All her glory, yeah. So I did Annie Get Your Gun 100 years ago at Osceola Playhouse, and I was Annie, and there's a kind of a sweet ballad that she sings. I got lost in his arms and I had to stay. So
It's a musical podcast, everybody. Listen to
to just to mess with everybody during rehearsal, obviously, but I would do Ethel Merman so I would go, I got lost in his arms and I had to stay.
Olivia, you joke, but another famous Mama Rose, Bernadette Peters, in the something in the aughts, I want to say, revival of Gypsy, but was also in that again, Bernadette Peters can do no wrong, but she might have, because she was also in Annie Get Your Gun. At some point, just so miscast, did her best. Y'all can come for me if you feel differently about this. Yeah.
But Mama Rose.
Much better Mama Rose than an Annie.
Yes, Annie.
Midler will always be my favorite Mama Rose.
Something interesting in this book, which I didn't realize until digging in, is she's always portrayed as an older woman, and she was in her early 20s, actually. As this stage mother, she was around 23 to 29 during the vaudeville circuit. She was very pretty.
Wow.
Yes. So she was not a old, I'm thrown out and I never made.
She frumpy middle-aged woman.
Yes.
Wow.
Nope. Huh.
How old was she when she had her kids? We'll get into it.
Let's get into it. What a great
question.
Let's start talking about that.
Tell us everything, Olivia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us everything.
So, first of all, she was born to a very interesting, I don't know if I would call them a theatrical family, but I would say prone to good times, let's say.
All right.
So she's from a German ancestry. They came over, and it was her great-grandparents, basically, came over here. And they settled in Farmington, Minnesota. Oh. So it was not the poor immigrant story. It was they actually had their lives together before they came over here type of thing, and were farmers at first and did very well. And so they started buying hotels and properties around this little Farmington.
They started playing Monopoly.
They started doing that. And they actually the great-grandfather and his brother owned a tavern that you could call a saloon that may or may have the ladies of the night around.
Yeah.
So the family was, yeah. The family was in that biz back in the day, which I really enjoyed learning that. I feel like when you look back at, they talk about like ancestral DNA now, right? And things being passed down in the genes. Yeah. They were some risk takers and they knew how to make money. So Rose was actually born to, her parents were Anna and Charlie, and she was born in North Dakota. And her father played piano by ear, which is interesting.
Oh. I know someone that does that as well, and it blows my mind.
Yeah, he never took lessons, but he could just play.
Just have a gift.
Yeah, so that was her father. Her mother, Anna, who she's the one that came from this line of owners of ne'er-do-well party establishments, shall we say.
Hey, listen.
Yeah.
Ladies got to make a living, as we learned from Nellie Gwynn.
So, that's right. So Anna and Charlie, okay, these are her parents, Anna and Charlie. Now, Anna is a very interesting woman because instead of being a typical housewife, Anna went against societal norms and actually worked out of the home while they had all these. She had a young Rose and brothers and sisters. She actually had a brother and two sisters. There was 3 girls and 1 boy altogether in the family. And the father, Charlie, worked for the railroads. And this was after the saloon actually burned down, unfortunately. There's a couple dramatic fires throughout the history of this family.
Yeah.
And
candles and wood. It doesn't.
Yeah, there's a couple fires that kind of, and they didn't have, this tiny town didn't really have a fire department.
And if they did, they're just coming on their horses in a little trolley.
And dumping buckets of water. Yeah, so both of the fires in the early history of this family were devastating to the whole town. Mm-hmm. So it was very dramatic. But they ended up, because of the railroad job, they ended up moving to Seattle. So that's where the majority of Rose's childhood and into the marriage later to come and the birth of in June, that all took place in Seattle. So Seattle is where the bulk of
Is there a particular place? I can't remember. It's been so
the
long.
Vaudeville circuit.
I feel like just everywhere. Santa Fe, they're at one point. They're in like New Mexico.
When she sings her "I Had a Dream," she's leaving her parents' house with the girls to take them out on the road.
Oh, so she's leaving Seattle.
Right.
So she's leaving Seattle,
right? Cool.
But and it's really interesting because reading this, and we'll get through. Basically, our story today is going to take us through. From her childhood through the circuit until the very dramatic ending of their Dainty June's childhood career.
So this is our first 2-parter.
That's where we're going to stop today. And is there a 2-parter? Is there a murder involved in today's episode? You're just going to have to stay tuned.
Oh, no. Say though, Olivia, you just laid an interesting piece of groundwork for those who are into all things true crime. You've invoked Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, which, as we know, just a lot of serial killers coming out of that space.
They really are.
So just not to speculate about what's happening here, but I'm just saying, like, we've invoked the Pacific Northwest, so God only knows what we're in for now.
Exactly.
Sit back and buckle up.
That's right.
Bundy, Mama Rose, who knows? Like
Bundy, Mama Rose. They're all very charming people. So let's see. So they are living in Seattle, and the mother, so Anna, opens a millinerist. Correct me if it millinarius.
She's a milliner.
Milliner. There we go.
So she opens a milliner shop.
Making some hats. I love a hat.
Right? And she loves to sew. As you may recall
water
from
bottle as a hat. I love it.
That's beautiful. That's fashion trend 2024.
Yeah.
So, as you may recall from Hello Dolly, milliners were not necessarily the most respectable women. So if you owned like a
We never were. We just needed a job. So it was, instead of getting married, you had a job. So it wasn't respectable.
Which also, I'm sorry, what is disreputable? I got some ribbons. I'm making a bonnet. And people are like, this floozy over here. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe this is where the rumor started because she didn't just stick to making hats. What she started doing was, this was during the time of the gold rush. And So the Pacific Northwest and the western side up into Alaska was where a lot of these gold rush areas and these temporary little towns would get set up for panning the gold or the silver, whatever. Well, what happens when you have a lot of lonely men in one area? Here comes some ladies to bring them some entertainment.
Opportunity is what happens.
Opportunists came.
And to Jen's point, that was an extremely lucrative way to support yourself as a lady.
Correct.
You've got men with disposable income. They've got gold, for God's sake.
Thinks that being a milliner is just as bad and I can make more money over here. I'm going over here. Sorry.
Well, now listen, Jen, let's dial it back. She did not become a prostitute, okay? However, she did start making the clothing for the prostitutes in the Gold Rush camps.
I've got some extra ribbon. Let's go.
Let's make some boas, ladies.
She goes, I have some lace. It's not like you need a lot anyway. You're going to be taking it off.
I truly believe that in a past life, I was like a madam at a saloon in the Old West. Like, it's not a joke. I truly believe that. Not a girl, a madam. Like, I ran that establishment.
Add this to the list of photo shoots we need to have. Just Jen as a madam. That's all we need. It's Patreon content.
She was out on the road a lot because she would travel, and lingerie for the prostitutes, for the sex workers at the time. That is what Mama Rose's mother did for her whole working life. That's what she did. And her husband, Charlie, he had to just deal with it. They did get divorced at one point. However, they stayed together. So I think I'm not going to stay married to you if you're going to do this. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. And he's fine. But you can come back anytime you want. So
that's a very Gen Z thing. Like, we're breaking up, but we can't afford to get separate apartments.
So we have to
keep living together for 6 months.
So they quit their marriage, but they stayed. Yeah.
A conscious uncoupling.
Yes.
A conscious uncoupling. So she grew up in this family where the mother was gone a lot, and she was very close to her grandmother. And Rose was also she was the third Rose in a line of roses. Rose was a name throughout the family.
Like the Lorelai Gilmores.
There's another Lorelai tie-in too. But I'll wait.
I love it. It's that time of the year.
That's right. There was a tragedy when they were young. Her brother, whose name was Hurd, H-U-R-D, Hurd. The mother, Anna, happened to be in town, and the children were out playing, and Hurd didn't come back home from being out playing. And was a long, lengthy search for a couple days, and they ended up finding his body in a lake nearby. And he had drowned. So that's really sad because unfortunately, there's a lot of death throughout this time period just because of disease.
Dysentery.
So that was and not enough exactly. So that's a sad kind of thing because Rose was 6 when that happened, so she was definitely old enough to have gotten
really formative too, because you're old enough to know what happened, and also that's still a really impactful thing for that age.
Yeah,
to know what happened, but not quite to understand it. Yeah,
when she was age 7. Now, throughout this history of this woman, there's a lot of did that happen or did that not happen?
Okay.
She tended to tell stories throughout her entire life. And there's family lore, but then there's also an understanding that perhaps this wasn't exactly what happened. At some point, perhaps around the age of 7, she went to a convent for a year. That is probably true. However, she would later tell Louise and June, she would later tell them that she was in a convent when she met their father, and she ran away from the convent to marry him. But that absolutely did not happen.
At age
far more dramatic, though.
It is.
Much more.
A full Maria von Trapp is much more exciting.
Absolutely. It's like when Disney made Pocahontas 17 instead of 12.
Precisely.
So there's love, yes.
So there's exactly. So we can have a love story. Yeah. Not run away from the convent to marry their father because the timelines really don't make sense for that. However, she did run away frequently from the house as she got older. So when she was a teenager, she loved playing instruments, and she Specifically, the mandolin was something that she was pretty talented at playing. But there was a summer theater troupe that she wanted to become a part of, and she apparently was pretty good in this, whatever this little show was that she did. However, her father, Charlie, was like, no, you're not going to be in theater because actresses get taken advantage of by men.
He's not wrong.
Correct. So Charlie was like, no, you're not going to be in theater. You're not. So he did not allow her to do it. So Rose ran away one summer and joined a troupe called the Juvenile Bostonians. It was a traveling theater troupe. So she went away and joined them, and Charlie figured out where she had gone and came and found her and brought her home. And this happened more than one time. She kept trying to join these musicals.
That's so funny. Do you know where she went? Were the traveling Bostonians near her, or did she like make it halfway across the country?
Oh no, they had come through town.
Okay.
And she
like just hopped on board the caravan. Was like,
yeah, she's like, it's like, I'm going to join the circus. She
Right.
joined the troupe
Yeah,
and was
I'm
performing with them. I don't
it.
quite know how long this little adventure lasted. It may have only lasted a couple weeks till he found her and brought her home.
If only it was still that simple. I'm going to perform with you. Just like do it.
I'm just going to go with you. And they were
I'm
like,
not
okay.
going to spend my hours and life auditioning. I'm going to hop up
Right.
there. Great. Okay, thanks.
One of the ironies, though, is while Charlie is trying to protect Rose from becoming a woman of ill repute, Charlie's wife is literally sewing clothing for women of ill repute.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
So Rose was surrounded by that.
Yeah.
Her whole life.
Pay no attention to the woman behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's fine. Dad, I'm going to be on stage. I'm not doing that. It's fine. It's
Dad,
fine.
mom's gonna make my costumes. It'll be great.
I'm seeing a
It's going
pattern.
to love them. It's going to give you guys more money.
Yeah. So the fact of this interesting family background with mom and dad getting divorced, mom then moving out of the house and opening her own hat shop, and then, but them staying together, it obviously set a wonderful example for the three girls. Because between the three of them, there were 8 marriages, at least, that have been documented between the 3 girls. Yeah.
It's a lot of dowries.
Yeah.
No shame, but that feels too many.
It's, yeah.
It does.
I was watching that Elizabeth Taylor documentary that dropped recently on Max, and they were like, did anyone forget to tell Elizabeth Taylor she could just date? You could just have a boyfriend. You don't have to just get married. You can just have a boyfriend. It's really fine.
It's fine.
Just
You
meet
have your own
someone's-
income. You're a movie star.
You can
Don't have to marry them.
She was like, I met you, I like you, we must be wed. That's
Right.
it.
We must be married. Right. And if you think about it, 3 daughters and a minimum of 8 marriages, that's more than 2 marriages per daughter.
Correct.
Like and at this time,
2.5.
2.5 marriages with
An
a couple
engagement
kids each
potential.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I love about Charlie, though, throughout the story is he is the dad that is there for whatever is needed. Charlie several times swoops in to save the day. And I think it's real. And the daughters, there's moving away, there's moving home amongst all 3 of the daughters, Rose and her sisters. She has a sister, Mina, and a sister, Belle. And so between Rose, Mina, and Belle.
Great names.
Isn't it beautiful? If Charlie was just like, this must be how ladies are, and their mom is out making dresses for hookers. I don't know what his thought was, but he always showed up. He wasn't like a get out of here, you've run through too many men. Like he didn't seem to be that type of man, which is so.
Sounds like he's kind of a quintessential girl dad too.
Yeah.
Especially if maybe you also, I don't know, like not to bring it down, but also if you've lost like the only son too, and then like you are also surrounded by this soft power or softer energy, potentially, not to be like too stereotypical about it, but I do think maybe that also does something to you psychologically, where it is maybe just a little bit more, like you said, Olivia, it's not to have a hard hand with them, but to just be, here's a second, third, and fourth chance.
Yes, chance after chance he seemed to, for sure. At one point, one of her runaway escapades, she and 2 other friends, when she was 14, ran off to try to join a chorus line in another musical that was not the chorus line, the musical that didn't happen.
To be clear, not the musical chorus line.
No, they weren't like singular sensation. She's hey, no,
way ahead of their time.
6 years.
Dance 10, looks 3. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Just to join a chorus line.
Okay.
And that story actually made the Seattle paper, which is really fun. So it was a small town. Anything anybody did was like captured in the paper, but it was captured in the paper. These 3 girls tried to run away, join the show.
Wow.
So when Rose was 19, she did not run off and join a circus or a theater troupe in Seattle. And she met a man named Jack Havoc. So you'll recognize that name. So, my grandmother said something that I recall, that was a joke in our family, was babies usually take 9 months, but the first one can be born at any time. Because Rose and Jack got married, and 7 months later, there was a baby. So just let that sink in for a second. There's probably one reason they got married.
Shotgun wedding. I wouldn't put it past Charlie.
This is it.
Yep. I've had enough. I've had enough of this. You marry my daughter.
Yes. So Rose Louise Havoc was born, and so Mama Rose named her daughter after herself, which is another little Lorelai.
Lorelai.
Yeah. So her name was Rose Louise, and she went by Louise. There is a consistency of people going by their middle names, by the way, throughout this whole story. It was a Northwestern thing. Everybody goes by their middle names. June was her middle name as well.
Oh.
So it's a little bit confusing. But so Rose Louise was born in January 1911 during a snowstorm, a horrible snowstorm. And this baby, ladies, take a breath. This baby was 12 pounds. And she was delivered naturally.
Right here. That I'm not having kids. Like that's it. I'm not taking that chance.
12.
Hard pass.
That is bigger than like a full-grown cat. Okay,
Oh my
12
God.
pounds. It was
That's
Vince was like 12 pounds when I brought him home. No, thank you.
That's two slightly below average normal babies.
Children.
Yeah.
Correct. One. It was a really, really hard birth, according to all accounts.
Yeah.
Really?
You don't say.
So I didn't need to point that out. 12 pounds. Now, something interesting, however, about this birth is the baby was born with what is called a cowl. Now, I heard about this because my mom's cousin was born with one of these. So there's an old wives' tale about this. So a cowl is a veil. So the baby is born with a veil over its face, and it's some kind of like a sack.
Is this the thing where I saw something about this recently. I will not use the proper medical jargon for this, but there's an additional membrane, basically. And it comes out just not in the womb, but there's an additional membrane that's covering it. Is this that?
Yes. Very rare.
Is it the same thing when they say somebody's born with a veil, like that? Then they're going to have those kind of.
That's exactly it. So they said she was born. That's exactly it. She was born with 2 veils, one over her face, one over the rest of her body.
Nuh-uh.
And Jen, that meant that the baby had psychic abilities. That child was a spiritual.
Yeah, and she had
soul. 2. And she had two veils. Mm-hmm. So Gypsy was born with 2 veils.
Wait, side note. So the person in your family that was born with a veil, did they have psychic abilities? Ask your mama.
He was my mom's cousin, and he was really into that stuff. He did claim to have witnessed a UFO landing. The same.
More sensitive to things, maybe. Sure.
Yeah. And it's probably true.
It was
in the forest of Charlotte, North Carolina, or something like that. So
probably
maybe.
True.
Amazing.
Now, as Louise got older, let's see, she did really get into reading tea leaves and astrology.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great.
Which is where Mama Rose came up with the nickname Gypsy. because she was dark-haired, dark-eyed, and was really into the kind of spiritualism stuff as a little girl. And so she started calling her Gypsy. So that's where that name came from.
My life was like, where'd that come from? I just
Right.
accepted it as fact. And was like, great, there we go.
Because, like, in the musical, they give her that name as she's getting tossed out on stage.
They're
to
like,
do
go, Gypsy, yeah.
Go, your name's Gypsy now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
more
that
of a
was
stage name.
Right. So that became her nickname in the family. But so a 12-pound baby. Mama Rose decided, I never want to have children again. However, she was a married woman, and back then there wasn't a lot you could really do to prevent that, and she got pregnant about 2 years later.
Okay.
And she did not want
Jack's baby?
This is
Just
Jack.
checking.
It was Jack Hovic's
Just checking.
baby.
Okay.
Listen, that's a valid question in this story, let me tell you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of twists and turns.
A lot of twists and turns.
She did not want the baby. So she tried to end the pregnancy. And I think there's a lot of emotional baggage between these two humans and June.
Who will?
Yeah, the little child who will be June, because she tried to throw herself downstairs. She tried to punch herself in the stomach. She stopped eating. She went on like a hunger strike. She was doing all she could to terminate the pregnancy because she was so terrified of another child based on what happened before.
You've been through that
and
horrific trauma, and you're going to think, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. Childbirth is trauma. There's like,
Yes.
this is why we need to have our own bodies.
Right.
Sorry.
And also, too, like the fact that it's also, I'll just say too, Jen, to that point, and even now, but I think specifically then, there's this level of like, we don't talk about that. Like, you just deal with it when you're like confronted with it in the moment. So it's like, surprise hooker, and off you go. So if that is the only information you have about this experience is like your own like experience, which was probably by all means like, horrifying.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you want to sign up for this again? It's absolutely not.
Absolutely
not.
not.
No, you need to be able to have that choice. Yeah.
And her marriage to Jack was not a happy one. It was never happy. He was older than she was. At this time, actually, to answer your earlier question, Jen, how old was she? She was about 18 or 19 when Louise was born.
Okay.
So she was
that's
only...
when she met Jack, so sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was only about 20, maybe 21 when June was. So she does...
I can't imagine having children now. I can't imagine at 20. Yeah, I know
having
times were different, but you're not an adult. You're not an adult yet.
Your frontal lobe is not done forming.
It's not done forming.
I'm just saying.
That's so true. And a lot of these decisions throughout the story could be explained by the lack of a fully formed frontal lobe, I think. But
just like serial killers, so Pacific Northwest. So there we go.
Throwing it up. It's like one Venn diagram making one circle before our very eyes.
Well, and this brings me to the first, unfortunately, dark tragedy in this story. Okay. So, and this one, we need a trigger alert for this one.
Okay.
A trigger warning.
Yep.
Content warning. So we're going to talk for a minute, and I'm sorry to tell you, it's going to be about animal harm.
Fast forward if you need to.
Fast forward if you need to.
I wish I could. Okay.
So June's born, and the pregnancy, by the way, went much better. It's because June was a very tiny baby, and it's because she was starving herself. I don't know.
That was another tactic to...
That was another tactic to try to end the pregnancy. But
okay.
So June was born, allegedly... This is also, there's a lot of questions about the birthdays of these. June was born allegedly November 8th, 1913. That birth certificate seems to say. So that's probably true. She was probably born in 1913. And Jack was, I think, probably trying to keep the family together. And I do wonder if there's some postpartum involved in perhaps this particular story. So we'll just rush through this one because I don't like this one. It's home a kitten for Louise. And June is a baby when this happens. And so Louise must have been maybe 3, not even perhaps 2.5 to 3 years old. Rose freaks out, does not want this kitten in the house, doesn't want Jack to give a gift to Louise. It's a very strange kind of description of the situation.
Yeah.
She kills the kitten.
Oh, God.
Oh, my gosh.
With an axe.
That is such an overreaction on so many levels.
Yeah.
I hope it was quick for the sense of the kitten.
Me
it probably
too.
was.
I know, but again, how extreme, and you gotta just not even to snap in the moment, but you're like, excuse me while I step outside and get this implement.
Go retrieve a whack.
That's an awful lot.
One they didn't use often.
The axe?
No, and also for a lady too. Again, that is just. That is a very animal harm is unusual for women in general, and also by violent means. Very unusual.
Very violent.
Also, just giving it to the neighbor. My God, like,
I would venture to guess, much like you did, Olivia, that it had something to do with postpartum and had maybe something to do with the anger that she had to have this child that she didn't want to have.
That she didn't, and also throughout the rest of her life. When I read that, I really hated her for a second. Throughout the rest of her life. They are surrounded by animals, the whole family, the traveling troupe.
Yeah, that's true.
They have animals and they're well taken care of.
It's fine.
And it's fine. It makes me think this must have been a moment of psychosis in Rose. That just
isolated
at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on from that story.
Moving on.
We now are in summer of 1914. June is probably, 6-7 months old. The marriage really falls apart. They get into a horrible fights, and Rose goes down and files for divorce, claiming physical abuse of Jack, that he threatened to kill her, and also that he was becoming, I don't know if violent with the children is the right word, but she felt like he was a threat. To the girls, that he was physically either threatening them, something. So there's a lot of documentation around this divorce. It was incredibly heated. It was very messy. At one point, she took the kids out of the apartment that they lived in and wouldn't tell her.
Wow.
All of this when she's about 21 years old, and he's probably almost 30 years old. The divorce happens, and she moves back in with her parents, Charlie. She moves back in with Charlie. Anna was off making costumes for
making
prostitutes.
lingerie
That's right,
for
sex workers at the gold rush sites, which,
incredible.
For me, when I was a madam in a
That's
saloon.
right.
I hired her.
You may have had a Havoc, or actually it was Rose Thompson, so you may have had a Thompson design.
I'm sure I did.
I'm
imagining it now.
She did file 2 restraining orders, which is interesting, against Jack. It's like physical distance, and one was a financial one to guarantee that she would get child support.
Oh,
Wow.
I know that Mama Rose has a lot of issues, and we're going to get into them and whatever. But
Yes.
to file those sorts of things makes me
woman.
feel, as a woman, at that time, I mean, it's hard enough now, but at that time makes me feel that something really was not. As a personal, I've never been hit, thank goodness, but in an emotionally abusive relationship, I ran for a month. I wasn't in the same place because he was trying to find me. So I get that.
Right. She did that.
And Olivia and Jen too. I don't know specifically what the laws were at this time because they've gone through different iterations, even just in our country in the last however many years. But for a while there, having an abusive husband, your husband beating you, was not grounds for divorce.
You're right.
No,
yeah,
that wasn't
because you were property.
Exactly. It was like, you had to have like proof of infidelity was like one, and that was even like pretty late to the party. We'll think about it. You know, like, oh, he's beating you senseless. That sucks for you. Yeah, very tricky.
Yes, very. And he was fighting for the girls. But at that time, that was basically unheard of, to give the father rights over the mother. And I guess somehow in a he said, she proved, or convinced, I should say, the judge that he was a threat to the safety of the girls and her. So the judge did grant her a divorce.
Well, that's good. I think in this case that is good.
I think so. Yeah. There's so many, she tells so many tales. She never again accused a partner of
one of her
abuse.
Husbands, because she's got a couple others.
She has another one coming. And so it does make me think that perhaps there was truth. She moves back in with Charlie with the girls, and she enrolls Louise in dance classes. And by all accounts, Louise was not very good.
A truth that happens also.
That's right.
She's not very good.
She's not really that great.
She's bad.
However, as the story goes, at the time, at this dance studio, which was the Douglas Dancing Academy in Seattle, and the mothers of the children, the dance moms, if you would sit in the back of the class. That's how they would sit in the back of the class and watch the class.
That's how they do it.
That's how they do it now.
So, That
My
is.
mom's sitting in the back of my class.
Yes. Well, my dance studio, there was a glass.
Oh, yeah.
There was
A
like
window,
the lobby,
yeah.
and the parents would
watch.
sit in the.
Yeah. Not creepy at all.
So, not creepy. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So one day she brings June with her. Rose brings June to sit in the back of the class. June's about 2 to 2.5, and June. Who wasn't talking yet, which is interesting because you know how sometimes in child prodigies there's one really elevated skill and then maybe a normal skill is underdeveloped.
Sure,
That to me is what this is about because June didn't talk till after she was 3 years old, according to this.
Nonverbal, yeah, but like selective.
Yeah,
it
nonverbal.
sounds like
Selectively, yes.
She could have.
I think it was selective.
To.
But chose not to because and there's a little moment to support that kind of statement.
Okay.
But so she. Little 2.5-year-old June toddles out onto the dance floor and starts mimicking what Louise is doing. Oh. And while everybody's, that's so cute, Rose is like, da 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 da. She's like, this was her moment. So she's like, this kid, wait a second, this kid is doing really well. So Rose tells the dance studio owner, you're going to give her private lessons. And the owner's like, no, I'm not. She's too young. And Rose is, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't hear me. You're going to give her private lessons.
Sorry.
And she did.
What? Because Rose says so. I
Rose-
started dance when I was 3.
Yeah.
I was like holding a stuffed dog and waving to my mom. From
Exactly.
The stage, so it wasn't the
Yeah, same Jen.
But
It was
private
it was actually
lessons?
called, like creative movement. Yeah,
Yeah.
creative scarf,
Right.
hopping
How
in
much
a
is
hula.
that doggy
Yeah.
in the window? I have
Yeah.
pictures.
Exactly. Like I think I had a tambourine in my 3-year-old dance class. Yep.
But
Not
this
baby
was-
June.
No, not baby June. This was private lessons for this
And Rose
tiny
knew
little
it.
thing. And that was her first Mama Rose moment of yes, you are. You're going
I'm
to
sorry,
teach my
I
child.
don't think you heard me.
That's great.
And a
Let
stage
me
mother
restate
was
that.
born.
The original dance mom, everybody.
A star was born. No, a stage mother was born. That's right.
I will say I did have dance mom on my bingo card for this one. Like that
Oh,
was the
me either.
gateway drug to be like stage
Dance mom.
Started with dance.
100%.
dance, yeah.
This started as a dance mom.
Wow.
So the first little show that June performed in was shortly after this. She was 2.5 years old.
Oh my God.
It was at Charlie. Okay, so Charlie, good old grandpa, right? Who's
Grandpa
like,
Charlie.
I'm down for whatever these days. Charlie was a Mason. Now that comes up a lot in
Like an actual Mason or
No,
part of
sorry,
the secret?
Secret society. Yeah.
excellent
I want
question.
to infiltrate that shit so badly. Continue.
I've been in a Masonic temple.
No, you have not.
What?
I was invited.
I had a friend. This is neither here nor there, but I had a friend. It was like their grandmother died or grandfather. Important because grandfather died, and
Yeah.
I went to the funeral to support my friend. And no kidding, it was like a surprise Mason flash mob because again they're very secretive. And
Yeah.
I think like she didn't know or like the family didn't know that he had been
Oh.
a Mason, but they
Wow.
just showed up at the funeral and were like,
Who are
and
these
now
men?
we will, and now we'll be doing
Yes.
like our Masonic like bit, and people were like, what is this? But it's a funeral,
Yeah,
so no
my-
one's gonna stand up and be like, you
Right.
can't do this here. It was wild.
Wow.
That's
And then they
interesting.
all
So my
left.
and then they all then they got
They did their Billy
disappeared
Wagner
behind the
job.
tree.
It was
So my grandfather was a Mason, and he had a Masonic rite done at his funeral. But yes, unrelated. Yes, I was invited to come in and see a tour of Masonic temple.
Oh my God, I have to know all about it. Offline.
That's
My uncle.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.
My uncle is a Mason, and we have a Masonic temple in my tiny little town of 800 people.
Yeah. Yep.
So they have apparently because I've been in the building because downstairs is like an event
it's
area.
open.
But then upstairs is where they do all the secret things. And
That's
I'm-
right.
I need to steal my uncle's key and go in.
Well, it's a good thing Charlie was a Mason.
Okay.
Because it ended up helping Rose a lot through her life. But I digress. This is just a performance with a little 2.5-year-old baby doll who can apparently dance like the wind. And they had their first performance at Charlie's Masonic Lodge Hall
Okay.
in that event space, Jen.
That's so funny. I'm
it was-
imagining the one that we have, which wouldn't have looked like it at all because it's so like a church like parish hall. Like it's so.
Yeah.
Like an
I don't know
gymnasium?
if this was like the Moose Lodge of Seattle. I don't
Yeah.
know, but he played piano, and baby June, 2.5 years old, danced.
That's right, because he
and-
played by ear.
5.5, maybe 6, depending on who you believe. Louise did a little comic relief number. She did a
Oh,
little
she
comic-
funny.
She was the funny one. So so that was the first kind of performance, and then throughout time at this dance studio, little June became the featured dancer. At age 3,
Are you serious?
she started dancing on point.
I never danced on point. Are you serious?
I'm not even kidding. There are photos.
Oh
Hold
my!
on.
We got to put him on the
And we'll
Instagram.
put it on the gram.
Put it
Hang
on the
I'm gonna
gram.
show you all, though.
First of all, what ballet teacher A signed off on that, but B to have I'll say it, just like the strength to do that at that age.
No,
is wild.
it's very
Her poor little feet.
inappropriate. Yes, and I think
Yeah.
that she may have had deformed feet as an adult because
Sure.
of it. However,
It's almost like
Let's
binding
play-
your feet.
it is
Yeah.
like binding your.
Well, because your whole
God, look
body
at her.
weight, your whole body weight is then pressing down, and your growth
Yeah.
plate is getting like shoved.
Shorter.
And
Yeah,
your
so you're
bones are very soft at that age.
Yes.
I danced on point. We were not allowed to dance before age 12 on point.
I was
because
13,
your
yeah.
bones. There you go.
Yeah.
So the
Some
little
point
baby
shoes,
June,
and you
she's.
ladies can teach me.
Oh, I can't, girl. I got the knees now. I
I saw
can't
my
do that.
tap shoes the other day, by the way, Olivia, and I was like, oh, I missed tap class with my best friend. Olivia used to teach tap guys.
In this little, in this little photo, she's maybe 3. That photo I just showed you of her in toe shoes, in point
She
shoes.
looks
So
like
A high fifth, just woof.
she looks like one of the Munchkins from The Wizard of Oz, like in her
She
little
does.
she
It's
does.
giving-
Point, the little
It's
ballerina
not-
girls.
Yeah, what was their thing? They weren't the Lollipop Guild.
No,
Who were
and,
they?
and that's what
The Lullaby
Lullaby
The
League.
Lullaby League. The Lollipop Guild was what was in my head. So.
Lullaby League. Yeah, that's what it looks
Lullaby
like.
League, Yep.
So she started dancing on point, which horrible, absolutely horrible. But
Yeah.
and it's like, what dance studio would allow it? How much did Rose say? Oh yes, she is. I don't know.
Oh, yes, she
I don't know.
is. Yeah, she's doing
Cute in theory, horrific in practice.
Yeah, makes for a good photo, but a horrible growth spurt in your feet.
Hey friends, Jen here, and we hope you're enjoying this episode of Life Upon the Wicked Stage. Just a few quick reminders. If you're looking for any of the visuals that we've mentioned in this or any episode of the podcast, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Wicked Stage Pod or Facebook at Life Upon the Wicked Stage. If you want more, please join our Patreon by searching the Wicked Stage Podcast. There you'll find ad-free episodes, videos of our recordings, mini-sodes, behind-the-scenes content, giveaways, and so much more. And the most important side note, if you like the show, please give us a nice rating wherever you listen. It sounds silly, but it's still the best way to get the word out and support us in this crazy podcast world. Well, lights are blinking, intermission's over, so grab those snacks and another drink and enjoy the rest of the show.
So, now Rose meets another guy in 1916, and they get married. He goes by Bubs. His name is Judson
Bub.
Brenneman. They all call him Bubs. It's not a long marriage. I think with 10 to 12 months. And that's over. He wanted children, and she was like, I told you, no, 12 pounds. Okay, so
Good for her.
yeah, and when he divorced her, I think this is hysterical and very indicative of who Mama Rose probably was. When he divorced her, as you said, he had to have a reason, Ashley. She was too cruel. He could not stay married to her.
Incredible.
And the judge printed it.
I like that a man is rocking up to court and be like,
Mean.
my feelings, she was mean.
You know what though? She probably wasn't mean at all. She was probably just, I said no.
I said no.
Probably just
I don't know.
normal pushback.
So it could be.
Well,
but
that was
you know what
Mama.
I mean?
I don't know how much of this is actually misunderstanding women or just it was
Or
Rose
just
Hovick.
it was Mama.
Yeah.
You didn't hear me.
Maybe it was both.
I
Maybe
do
it was
wanna-
both.
No.
A reasonable pushback,
Yeah.
and yeah, he was like, I was wounded.
And then she picked up the axe. No, okay. This was a headline of one of Baby June's shows at the dance studio in the Seattle Times or whatever it was the Seattle Times. The headline was "Babies Twinkling Little Feet Delight Big Crowd at Ad Show." I can't figure out why it's called an ad show, but ad like ad like a I don't know.
Advertising.
But this was here's the review. Baby June, 3-year-old dancer who delighted a large crowd at the Ad Club show at the arena last night, is called a second Pavlova.
Oh.
Her little legs and feet spoke poetry of motion that is equaled only by few professional dancers, said those who saw her. She practically charmed the crowd with her interpretation of the difficult dance, the Magic Fairy. That was age 3. Age 3. On point. Dancing. Yeah.
Pavlova.
All right, Baby June. Get it.
Pavlova, it was a famous Russian ballerina at the time.
Yes.
And so they were calling her a Pavlova.
I was just
ballet,
gonna
but
say,
I know that
feels
name.
Russian. Yeah. Vaganova.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. So we've got dancing. So let's move forward. Okay?
Okay.
So we have now gone through 2 husbands, and
Right.
before she fully divorced, or was fully divorced by Bubs for cruelty.
For cruelty. Bubs.
She decided it's time for June to be in the movies. So she moved from dance mom to film mom, and she moved the girls down to Hollywood.
It's not talkies yet, right? It's just silent film.
That's right.
Still?
It's not the talkies yet. That's right.
Yes, the silent
Silent
film. We had
film.
faces then. Yeah.
Just faces. Mary
Right.
Pickford, Charlie Chaplin.
Yes, and Mary Pickford. They actually did a Mary Pickford movie. That's yep.
America's sweetheart.
That's right. So they moved down to Hollywood. Also, interesting fact about Mama Rose is she had really bad asthma.
Really?
There was times in her life where it debilitated her to the point that she could like barely get out of bed.
Wow.
So moving out of Seattle was also a plus for her to move into a warmer
the
climate.
dry weather too.
Moisture. Yep.
Yeah. So you're
Mm-hmm.
saying Mama Rose couldn't sing out?
Well done.
See what you
But
did
she,
there.
I do see what you did there. She enrolled the girls again in dance. So this comes back to the dance moms. In Hollywood, there was Celeste
Hollywood.
School of Dance. That's right. And that school turned out stars at the time. Mary Pickford actually was one that did go there. And then years later, Shirley Temple would come out of the Celeste School of
Shirley.
Dance. So exploiting
coolest
children
lady.
since the 1920s.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was divorcing Bubs, and they were living the lifestyle in Hollywood, which was basically going to casting calls, going to dance class, and staying in
about right.
hotels.
Yep.
And who was
So
funding
the life
it?
of an actor?
The life of an actor.
Yeah.
Who was funding it? Charlie, Grandpa.
Grandpa
And I think
Charlie.
probably some of the child support from first husband, Jack. But Mama Rose would regularly go back to Seattle to get more money from Charlie, and he was like, okay.
Wow. Okay, here you go. Oh, yeah, because that was the only way to do it. You actually had to go and get the money.
June still wasn't speaking at this point. This was age 3.
Wow. Just
However,
dancing.
Mama had taught her specific lines to a little song that she would sing on command.
Huh.
Which makes me think she did choose not to speak. She was
Selective.
She
she could sing,
Yeah.
and she would sing this little song on command, but didn't really speak till I guess maybe age 3.5 to 4. So when they would get these lodge hall bookings around Hollywood and these casting calls to show up and be like a little extra in a silent film, they would do this because they needed the money. They were staying in hotels, and
Good money.
yeah, and regardless of whether the girls were sick or not, they were expected to perform. So there's one
the show must
retelling
go
of
on.
where, she made June perform while she had an outbreak of the chicken pox
No.
and smeared grease paint all over her so that you couldn't see the chicken pox.
And then everyone else got chicken pox.
That's probably. Here's a little peek behind the curtain of Mama Rose as to, was she really this much of a pushy,
Pushy broad.
Right, pushy broad. Yes, she was. So she had a collection of Mason pins from her ex-husband, Jack, was a Mason. And Charlie, her father, was a Mason. So she had these pins, and then based on whatever lodge hall they were around, she would wear that pin and show up to the lodge hall with these 2 little girls who were taught to cry on cue and say, we just need a little bit of hot soup, because she would claim that her husband, who had been a mason, had, quote, left her all alone in the world with 2 babies to support. And they would let her in, and they would feed them, and then they would hire them to perform in the lodge hall.
What an elaborate ruse.
Yes. And she's
my
raising
God.
her girls to be getting one over on everybody.
Yeah, because they're
You know?
standing right there. Oh, we are? Okay, cool.
And and she'd be like, June, cry. And she'd be like, I'm so hungry. Yeah.
Oh my God. Please, sir, I want some more.
So she wasn't, so they were not breaking into the scene, though. Rose had hoped. There was a lot of little kids down there
Listen,
doing
kid,
this.
it's not easy.
That's right.
It's
And
not
even
easy.
back then, there was a lot of moms doing the thing. And Rose claimed she was not going to be willing to lay on the casting couch like a lot of the
Good
other
for her.
moms. And so the girls were not getting booked. That's what Rose was due to. So she took the girls and moved back to Seattle
Okay.
for a little while. And this is where the vaudeville circuit starts. So they paired up with sisters, the Deal sisters, who had had an act in that was already known in the vaudeville circuit. They paired up with them, and they started booking shows on the vaudeville circuit. So it was Louise and June and these 2 other sisters. But what started happening is June started outshining the other girls.
Right.
In the show, because she really was so incredible. I think
She's a
the
prodigy.
She was a prodigy. I think the musical lends itself to saying that, like, Mama Rose pushed, like, over-professed how good June was, but no, she really was a child prodigy in dancing and singing. She was
had talent and charisma. It wasn't just
Yes.
pure stage mom.
Yeah.
That's right.
She was worthy
That's right.
of the attention. Yeah.
She was worthy of the attention.
Right.
Rather than dealing with kind of the jealousy of the show that they in, she decided to start on her own. So
Okay.
they started their own show called Baby June and Her Pals. And this is when the age fudging really started. So Mama Rose got their original birth certificates and changed the dates to make them younger for a
She
couple
actually
reasons.
changed the dates on the
She
birth certificate.
she created forged birth certificates
Oh.
with the dates changed for 2 reasons. One was it made June seem even incredibly more talented, because here's a 5-year-old who you think is a 3-year-old, these amazing things. Also, it meant that they didn't have to be enrolled in school because they were too young,
Too young for school.
even though they weren't too young.
Keep them out of that
And at some
school.
point should have started school, but she didn't. She had no time for school. Who
No
has time for school?
Did they ever go to school?
There is record that they did at one point join public school for a little bit, but no, they did not start full-time in a school. There was a tutor brought on board.
I was going to say, this is why there are always tutors on set and stuff, because
there was a
kids are
tutor
out of
at
school.
the point when the show really got more popular. So they joined what was called the Pantages circuit. There was several vaudeville circuits. The Pantages is the first one that they joined, and the goal was always to get on the Orpheum circuit, because that was the
I've
big
heard of that,
time
yeah.
vaudeville circuit where the big stars were. Yeah.
Is it Pantages or Pantages? Because I've heard it both ways. Do we have a real
I don't know.
pronunciation? We don't know.
I don't
I've heard
know.
it both ways. I was curious if this was a.
It was a last name, because the guy that ran it, his name was Pantages, or maybe it's Pantages.
Or Pantages.
Pantages.
Don't come for us on Instagram, listeners. We
We'll
don't
look
know.
it up later, and so we know for the future.
The Pan
What's
circuit,
interest-
but the Orpheum circuit was
Orpheum circuit is what they will always wanted to be on. So while they're on the Pantages, while you're in any kind of vaudeville circuit, they didn't have tour managers. They didn't have
Have
you
a
know,
union.
All they did was they booked you. You had to get there. They started this Baby June and
had
her
to work as a
pals
local.
show. Well, yeah, like the vaudeville booking agency. There was like a booking agency, and they would book in these theaters around the country. But it was up to the act themselves to get on the train, pack all your stuff, book the
Right.
hotel, make sure you had food, make your own costumes, do your own choreography, all that stuff.
Except for the choreography, it's pretty much the same as working as a local in film.
See, some things haven't changed.
Some things haven't changed.
I don't think I knew though, Olivia, about like specifically like the vaudeville circuit. I at least assumed there was like at least some level of support when it came to the logistics, but it really does sound like extremely scrappy. Like every man for himself.
It was
like
very, very scrappy. Like you had to be young, scrappy, and hungry to do this. And so it all fell on Rose. So Rose hired these other kids from Seattle or whatever to be part of the show, to be Baby June's pals. She decided to also hire little boys because then they wouldn't have the jealousy issue with another mom being jealous of the daughter.
Okay.
So and also you don't want other girls distracting pretty little girls.
Exactly.
Oh, my star. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So she hired little boys and they went on the road with the Pantages, however you say it, circuit around the Northwest and into Chicago.
Wow.
Here comes who we all know in the show as Herbie. His name was Gordon. And
also
Rose.
Good name.
Also Gordon. I think for some reason Herbie and Gordon are like the same name. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, they really are. They're
like
the same vibe.
Same brand. Yeah. Herbie, Gordon. Yeah.
Yeah. This is how she met Gordon. They were on tour in Detroit with the Pantages circuit.
Okay. The Pantages,
and
whatever.
Pantages, I don't know. Pantages? I have no idea.
We'll figure it out.
The Panty circuit. And Gordon saw, I don't know if he saw the show. Long story short, he was married with a child, Rose. And whether the family they were getting ready to get divorced or whatever, he met Rose and 2 weeks later went on the road with her, left his wife and child behind.
Wow.
So Gordon jumped right in, joined the circus with them. He had been a investment banker, so he had some money.
Oh yeah, he did.
And he also knew marketing and sales. So he is really part of the reason they were able to eventually get on the Orpheum circuit is because he said,
Spoiler alert, they did it.
Spoiler alert, they made it to the Orpheum circuit. He was like, look, you want to be taken as a big act, you got to look like a big act.
You got to look it, kid.
Olivia, as you famously said recently, it's called show business.
Yeah.
Business.
Business.
That's
Thank
exactly
God for
right.
you ladies, because I don't have the business sense. So see, this is why this all works.
Jen, you have many talents, including editing this podcast.
That's right.
Don't come at me, guys. I'm learning. It's going to get better.
We'll be your Gordons, because Gordon basically showed up and was like, hey, you know what? We're gonna make it look like you're already a big deal so that they'll think you're a big deal. So that's where
I do need you in my life as my Gordon. Thank you.
That's right. The famous all white fur outfit that Baby June wears was real. He went out, they bought her a white fur coat and a white hat that she would walk around in. He bought Mama Rose furs. They started staying in suites instead of these torn up hotels.
Dress for the job you want.
That is exactly it. He went out and got nice clothes for the boys and made it seem like they belonged there. So that's also when they hired a tutor, because your kids need to know how to read or something.
Yeah, they need to not be. This isn't the 1600s. Come on.
Right.
Slightly important.
Slightly important.
Maybe reading would be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bare minimum.
That's right. So they also hired a tutor. But what's funny is if you look up old photos of this troupe, there's some photos of the kids sitting at school desks as if they were doing classroom work. That's a set from a theater that they were touring through. They got a photo of the kids sitting in school desks to pretend like they actually really cared about getting their academic education.
I love like a staged Instagram photo, like
Before they were a thing.
We're doing this for the TikTok.
Oh, so ahead of your time.
We're doing it for the TikTok. So
we're doing it for the Orpheum circuit.
We'll do it for the Orpheum. So they started getting attention.
Yeah.
And a article was written in the Wisconsin State Journal about Rose, and it referred to her as the first time as Madam Havoc. And this is where the Madam Rose came from. Okay. They started referring to her as Madam Havoc, and they said she was a developer of children because she would hire these boys who a lot of them were like street buskers or impoverished children. And their parents were like, please, yes, take them. And she would take them and train them, and they would be in the show. And they had this show that brought down the house. It was a 9-act show. By the time they got noticed and brought into the Orpheum circuit, it was a 9-act show. Wow. June performed in 7 of the 9 acts.
Wow.
And when you booked a show on the Vaudeville circuit, you did your show 5 times a day.
Woo!
So June, she did up to 35 performances a day.
Wow.
Because if it was 7 numbers in a show, 5 shows a day.
Yeah.
And they worked 5 to 6 days a week.
But you have to think about a 9-act. I'm assuming act now means essentially like a longer scene, maybe. But 9
Correct.
scenes. Let's
Yes,
assume that's
yes.
at least an hour's worth
At
of
least,
content.
yeah.
So
Yes.
you're performing, solidly 5
hours
a day? That's wild.
And this was, June actually at the time thought she was 7. She was 9 years old. She was 9, but she thought she was 7. So June didn't actually know how old she was. Louise also thought she was younger.
Wow. But imagine, like, now, to put that in context for people, we're here in Orlando, but imagine a 7-year-old rocking up to the Theater in the Wild stage at Finding Nemo, The Big Blue and Beyond, being like, I'm here for my 5 show day. They even have more breaks over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never called out sick. The show had to go on regardless. So this little girl was...
If listeners, if you've never performed on stage, which many of you maybe have not, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Yeah. It's a different level of energy that you have to put out.
Just being on that much, like physically, vocally. Yeah, that's a lot for an adult.
For an adult.
She was the star of the show, so she was supporting her entire family and the whole troupe.
Breadwinner.
By age 9, thinking she was 7, but by age 9. They were, at this point, at the height of their popularity, they were bringing in 4 figures a week, which was huge.
That's
and
huge.
June herself, her salary was like $1,200 a week. That is huge.
That's fast forward. Yeah. Jen,
I'm going to find it.
Give us the math on that.
This would have been 1920.
1920.
Yeah, like 1921, 22, like around that time.
Okay, and you said it was $1,200 a week. In 1922.
Mm-hmm.
That would be $22,000
a week.
A week. What it says.
So they were living high. They had a great time. They had this is Mama Rose, Gordon, Baby June, and Louise. They had a couple boys who had been with them from the beginning, and then probably 5 or 6 other boys that they had picked up along the way. They were all treated, other than being way overworked, let's be honest. They were all, and not getting like days off. They didn't go on vacation, but they ate really well. And the joke in the musical about them eating in Chinese restaurants, that actually is true, because the Chinese restaurants can handle a big party. They were not super expensive, and they were always close to the theaters. So they ate Chinese and Italian all the time.
It's still the same today.
And that's right. That's right.
Nothing has changed. I also love to, like, going back for a minute, how Olivia, you were saying you're Madame Rose, like a developer of children. I'm like, put through the lens of a nice lady in her, like, at this point now we know, late 20s.
Yeah.
What a nicer lens than, like, the inverse of that, of a man, like a creepy old man, like a developer of, like, young girls.
Of
like,
children.
It's very upsetting, like, through any other filter, but it's, oh no, this is fine. This is actually okay. This is a nice
and
opportunity.
And the families... Yeah, and the families these boys came from were mostly poor families.
Yeah, like you said,
anyway.
they were buskers, and they were like, please give my child an opportunity.
They can eat, and they can... Yeah,
like,
but meanwhile...
Better than losing some, like, fingers in a factory somewhere. Like, so much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, she was lying about everybody's age. Also...
And her own, probably, as well.
Probably,
I'm only 21.
That's right. I'm her older
Perpetually
sister.
21.
Yeah. So here's a fun little Mama Rose story is They liked to be the only children's act booked in a show. So when the act would get booked, there's a specific structure to the vaudeville act. There was like 6 performances. So there'd be like in one show, so let's say it was a 3-hour show, 2.5-hour show. There were 6 acts booked into the show. So within the Baby June and her pals act, there were like 7 to 9 numbers in the act. So I'm sure it was back to back, very fast, probably like a 45-minute, exactly, type of thing. Yeah. However, the order in which the shows were put together told you how big a deal your show was. You wanted to be like the 5th act was the headliner.
Oh, interesting. The headliner was in like the middle.
Yes, because the way it worked was the first few acts were like the warm-ups. And that's usually where like the little kids would be, and then you'd have your headliner. Then you'd have a couple shows after the headliner to make people stay in their seats. And then the last show of the night, the 6th slot, was known as the chaser slot. And that was where the worst acts went, because the idea was they would chase everybody out of the audience. They were so bad.
You're so bad you want to get up and leave.
Get out.
You get on the Orpheum circuit, you're so excited, and then you find out you're in the chaser slot. You're like, shit.
They never wanted to be 1st or 6th. They wanted to be right in the middle, and they usually were. They were usually either the headliner or they were the act like right before the headliner. They were
the opening act of the headliner, sure.
The opening to the headliner. However, Mama Rose did not like it when theaters booked another children's act to be part of that 6 number
she did not. These
show.
Are my children. How dare you?
Right. There's only one children's act in this, and it's my kids. While those other children would be on stage.
Oh, God.
And their parents and guardians were in the wings watching them, that left their dressing room areas unattended.
Oh, no.
And Mama Rose would go and take their props and costumes, and they would disappear.
Oh, my God. Other people's props. Mama Rose, rule number 1.
And then when the kids would be like, I can't find my hat, Mama Rose would be like, oh my goodness, how terrible. And she was so concerned, no one ever suspected that she was the one taking it.
Acting was happening. You know, though, when I was dancing competitively, I'm not saying it was right, but that was a thing that still happened.
I'm not saying it was right.
Specifically, stealing people's shoes, because if you didn't have the shoes you needed, you were really screwed. And usually people had like backup shoes and stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember specifically when we would go to competitions, my mom, if the shoes were not on my feet, my mom would take my dance bag with my shoes and had it like on her person, because this was such a problem. Like sabotage. Yeah.
She was sabotaging the other children. Absolutely.
Show business, guys.
That's it.
It's not for the weak.
Wow.
That is it. Yeah. An incident in 1923.
The chemistry occurred.
They were in the middle of a show on stage, and all of a sudden, the theater was raided by the police. During a live show, they came and they grabbed Baby June and Louise and all the boys and took them to a children's shelter.
Why?
Because the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children had been on to Mama Rose.
Oh my God. So like children's services were called.
Children's services came in and grabbed them all.
Just when you were saying how nice this was.
That's
I'm like, this is lovely.
Sent them to a children's shelter, and where there was testing, like doctors were brought in to test June and Louise to see their actual age, to prove that they weren't as young as they should be. But so it was like they were old enough that they should have been in school, but they were too young to actually be working, because they were actually under 13 and you had to be working. So it was this whole kerfluffle happened. 13. And Mama Rose was like, oh my God, Gordon, what are we going to do? We're going to lose the act. We're going to lose the children.
What are we going to do?
So Mama Rose gets called into court, and on the judge's lapel, she sees a Masonic pin. So when
Mason's
she gets out of court that
rescue.
day,
Charlie.
she calls up Charlie, her dad, and says, I need you to get the Grand Master, or I think they're called the Worshipful Master of the Masons in Seattle, to call the Masonic Master here in New York and let him know that he needs to tell the judge that I'm a good person and that I'm a good mother and that the girls are well taken care of and everything is okay and I'm not exploiting them. So,
if you're not watching the video, dear listeners, Ashley and I are frozen in astonishment.
Jaws
gas,
drop.
gobsmacked.
Oh my God. Okay, continue. Sorry.
So the judge looks at the report from the guy that's basically the child services agent. He didn't get them, they weren't arrested, but they were, I don't know, seized. And it wasn't because of the age discrepancies. It was actually more sinister than that. It was because the child services agent felt like the content of the show was inappropriate. Because
he was
Baby
being
June,
a censor.
yes, because Baby June would sing adult female songs, but in a cutesy little way. And she would sit on a man's lap in the audience while singing the song. And while Mama Rose was like a hawk as far as,
modeling
still, that aspect was in the show. They let everybody go with the understanding that they would take those inappropriate moments out of the show, take out the adult content, basically, being done by children. That's going to come out.
Yes.
That's right. And you're going to enroll them in the Jerry Society School because they need to be in school, which was a school for theatrical children, which makes me think of like X-Men, like the school for the exceptionally whatever, Professor X's school. Yeah, it was like the Professor X school for theatrical children.
I love it.
So Mama Rose promised on her Masonic honor that she would do all those things. And as soon as they were released, they went back to vaudeville life. They did not enroll in school. They did, however, remove some of the adult content from the show.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Let me so Charlie called then.
So Charlie made the call, and the
Charlie
Masons came
call.
through. The Masons came through, and she got her
so
vaudeville show
fascinated.
back. She slipped through the fingers of the court system.
Because of the Masons. They're everywhere.
And there's a lot of fun was had that the vaudeville life learned to these kids. They got to celebrate all the holidays. Mama Rose was a big fan of Christmas, and there was Christmas presents and decorated trees, and the pets that were on the road with them, they had gerbils, they had dogs. Louise had a pet monkey.
Oh.
Yes. And there was a lot of fun. The animals all were well taken care of. They had their own little pet tree for Christmas. And Mama Rose was known at Christmas time for giving all the children wine. And when the other stage moms that they were around the circuit said, "This is inappropriate. These children should not be drinking wine," Mama Rose's response, "Wine is full of iron, so it's actually good for them."
So good for them.
Wine is full of iron.
Iron.
I am ironed up.
Yes.
I'm adding this to our merch list. Wine is full of iron.
Wine is full of iron, so it's good for you.
It's good for you. It's good for your joints.
That's right. And on one occasion, this was documented by, I think, both June and Rose. She gave the little monkey wine. And the monkey got a little drunk because monkeys are like humans.
They're real close to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So the monkey got a little drunk. So while Mama Rose was trying to put its little monkey outfit on, the monkey was drunk and bit Mama Rose. So Mama Rose bit the monkey back.
I'm assuming this was like a tiny monkey that stayed little and cute that Mama Rose had.
This was a monkey. It was. I'll have to find what kind. It is one of those small, like not a Gershwin monkey, but it's like Gershwin monkey.
A gibbon?
It's like maybe a gibbon? I don't know. I thought I had it started with a G. I like Gershwin, but so it was a tiny monkey.
Well, if it wasn't when it started, it was at the end. It was funny.
It's a
the monkey's,
monkey.
"Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime cow."
It's got a little top hat. Yeah. So,
absolutely does.
So things were great. The birth certificates continued to get forged, and the biggest forgery happened when. So basically, because she got spooked, Mama Rose got spooked with the whole child seizure moment of 1923. So she decided, we're going to actually forge passports because that will end once and for all how old these children are. So she went back to Seattle, got a doctor, because Louise was born in Seattle. Somehow, I don't know how she convinced him to reissue a birth certificate with a changed birth date for Louise. So it made her old enough to work in the industry. So instead of being born in 1911, it said she was born in 1908. And then they did a birth certificate. She engineered this birth certificate swap for June. Now, June had been born in Canada. So this was trickier. So Rose got a new birth certificate, a new document made for June that was going to make her older. Okay. And this is important. This is an important moment. It was going to make June older because it would mean that she was legally allowed to work. June wasn't as old as this birth certificate said. So for the stage folks, she said June was younger. But for the law, she said June was older.
This is like whiplash for this child. Yeah.
Yes. So they went through this elaborate setup where Mama Rose had to go to Canada to where June was born. And she had this new birth certificate in her purse. Okay. She went with Louise. And according to this tale, which I'm not sure if it was told by family or if this one's documented, I will verify. But she went to the clerk, the county clerk, and said, I need to see my daughter's birth certificate. So the county clerk in Canada goes and gets the original birth certificate. And as she's standing there, Mama Rose faints. She has a spell of the vapors and she collapses. And as the clerk goes to help her, Louise switches the birth certificates. No. So now the forged birth certificate is on the desk of the clerk's office. Louise pockets the original birth certificate, and somehow Mama Rose regains consciousness and is like, "Oh my, I'm okay. Thank you so much, Louise. We better be going." And
Louise sleight of hand.
Wow.
Yep. So with these two new birth certificates, she gets passports in their new older age. So these girls have no idea how old they actually are.
I can't imagine.
It's very destabilizing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. I forget how old I am sometimes.
But not because your mom issued 4 different birth certificates. Right.
Yeah, there were times where I was like, does my mom know where I am right now? And it's actually, you're 38. That's fine. Yeah.
Somebody's like, how old are you? I'm like, I don't know. I play 30 to 40.
Age range. Yeah.
Age range, yeah. I have to go, what year is it? Okay, I was born in this year, so it's this year. Okay, so I'm this. Yeah. Everything's going along swimmingly until it's not. So they're having a great time. They've evaded the authorities. They're doing their thing. They're touring everywhere. But what starts happening is radio starts becoming popular, and movies are now talkies.
Damn it.
And so people are not going, but vaudeville is dying.
Right.
At the same time this is happening, June is now 15 years old. She thinks she's 13. Everybody.
She's a blossoming young woman.
Right. And she doesn't look like a baby anymore. And they're still doing, now they have changed the name to Dainty June at this point. So June. That did come through. So she did become Dainty June. However, the act was the same. And a lot of the boys they had grown up with have moved back home because they're older now. So they have new boys in the act who are older boys. And it's getting weird. The show is getting, it just doesn't make sense anymore.
They're teenagers.
And June is developing like a woman.
Hormones have entered the chat. Yeah.
So one of these young men.
Oh, here we go. Mm-hmm.
While this is happening, there's a young man introduced to the cast. He goes by Buddy. He had a ridiculously German name, but he goes by Buddy. This becomes a perfect storm because June starts noticing Buddy. At the same time, the show is starting to go downhill. June is feeling really awkward doing the show. The show is no longer getting booked anywhere. And this causes Mama, Rose, and Gordon to start fighting. She's blaming Gordon for not booking enough shows. Gordon is trying to convince her it's time to change. And she absolutely refuses to. June also gets really sick at some point around this time. It might be before the show officially starts declining, but she gets very sick and she's diagnosed with like nervous exhaustion, which basically the kid's just frickin' tired. Yeah. So she has to take 2 weeks off. All these things kind of start happening and things start falling apart. So Mama Rose and Gordon finally have one awful fight that happens to happen in Detroit, where he originally is from, so he leaves. He leaves the show. I don't think he goes back to his wife, because I'm sure that ship had sailed, but he leaves the show. And he's done. It's over. And so
Gordon,
they keep
AKA
trying.
Herbie is out.
Yeah, Herbie is out.
Herbie is out. And Mama Rose is devastated, but she is convinced that they can still make it. So they're going to keep going. They get an audition with, and this is mimicked in the musical, they get an audition with a producer known as Roxy Rothafel. Has June up on the stage by herself. He just wants to see her audition by herself. He thinks she's amazing, but she needs dance training. She needs acting training. It's just like it's basically in the musical.
Yeah, she has raw talent, but...
She has raw talent, but it needs to be honed. And he says he will support Louise and Mama Rose financially, and he will pay for all of this training for June, and she'll be a big star. This is red flag city to Mama Rose.
Yeah.
I think you're actually interested in having sex with my daughter. So we're not going to do
Creepy
this.
old man alert. Creepy old man alert.
Creepy old. Yeah, auga. So the things that maybe our other previous actresses' mothers should have done, this one actually did. And she said no. However, this devastates June. This is my way out of this show. This is my way to finally make it big. And she's absolutely devastated.
Yeah,
can you hear the dogs barking?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, sorry. My dogs are very upset by this.
They are. They're invested in this.
They don't like the creepy old men either.
They said auga.
They hate it. So this is like the nail in the coffin for June. She haven't wanted to do this show for a long time. It's time for me to grow up. And so this kind of pushes her even more into the arms of this Buddy character.
Buddy.
Now, there's a second creepy old man alert, because Buddy is 22. He thinks June is 13.
13. Oh.
So June's 15, which is still way too young for 22.
Gross.
But he thinks she's 13. Mama
Still
Rose... Still bad. Mama Rose starts noticing the noticings. The two of them are sneaking off and like making out in the wings. Has absolutely had it. So she has a
Showmance has bloomed.
That's right. She has a big fight. She has a big fight with Buddy. Mm-hmm. And I'm firing you, but you have to stay on the tour till the tour dates are done. So she like fires him in November. She fires him in November. Soft firing. Allegedly, this big fight, according to June, happened on stage in front of an audience. So I hope that's true. Where she's like screaming and smacking him around.
I do hope
in front of an audience. Fires him, but tells him he can't leave the tour till the end of December. Then she goes back to June's dressing room and proceeds to beat June, according to June. Now, is this true? I don't know. Because June's whole life, she was incredibly catered to, because she was the show. She was the livelihood. She was the star. Anything June wanted, she got, to the point that a lot of the whole spoiled brat kind of mentality was probably true, because if June was having a bad day, it would show on stage. And
everybody
so
was having a bad day if June was.
Yeah.
it would So I don't know, did Mama Rose really she probably screamed at June. She allegedly she might have slapped her, I don't know, but she allegedly did break a mirror in the dressing room and said to June, "You're going to get 7 years of bad luck, not me. This is your fault."
Wow.
So what happened? They keep doing the show, but June now got the producer that was going to put her on the big screen and make her a star has been thwarted. The show is falling apart, and now Mama Rose has forbidden her to see her love interest. So what does she do? She grabs a birth certificate that shows that she's 21. And she and Buddy take 2 of the boys and run down to the courthouse. And on November 30th, 1928, they get married. And they don't tell anyone. And the boys that are the dancers in the show that are now these men, they are their witnesses, and they swear, yes, she's 21, even though they all think she's 13, but she's actually 15.
Oh my God.
What a hot mess
They don't
express.
tell. They don't tell anybody. So they go back to the theater and they play like they're still, like everything's okay. Well,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
the tour's final show is in Topeka, Kansas. And the show ends, so the tour is now over. And suddenly, June and Buddy have disappeared. Mama Rose is looking everywhere. Where are they? And she's, oh my God, they've run off together. So Mama Rose goes to the police station and says, this man ran off with my baby. You've got to find him.
She's
My
only
13-year-old.
13. Yeah.
She's only 13 or 12. Or the cops go out and start looking for them. They find Buddy. They can't find June because June has decided to go hide in a brothel. So June is shacking up in a brothel.
Listen,
Incredible.
it's
To
a
hide-
family business, kind of. So
To hide from, yeah, she was probably comfortable there. To hide from the cops and to hide from Mama Rose. But the cops do find Buddy. They bring him into the station. And he is there with Mama Rose. And Mama Rose says, yes, that's the one. You kidnapped my baby. He produces the marriage certificate.
It's like, you mean my wife?
You mean my wife
Big
that
reveal.
I've been
Da-da.
married to for a month? It's a month old. Mama Rose
oh man.
reaches in her bag and pulls out her pistol. And here the stories diverge. According to June, who heard this from Buddy, Mama Rose pointed the gun at him, pulled the trigger, and the safety malfunctioned, and it didn't fire.
Oh my God.
According to Mama Rose, the cops grabbed the gun out of her hand before she even could do anything,
Right.
and just was like, lady, you're hysterical, you need to go home.
You
Which
need
is
to
true.
go somewhere.
I don't know, but I
Drink
think
your
she had
juice,
every right
Shelby.
to pull a gun on this guy.
Wow.
Drink your juice, Shelby.
Out of her purse. I just happen to have this pistol in here.
That's
One
right.
does. Casual. Just in a
meanwhile-
clutch. Sensible clutch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all the boys in the show knew what was going down because they knew that they'd been married for a month. They
Yeah.
knew that Mama Rose was finding out that night, and so they all disappeared. And so
We're
Mama
not gonna
Rose
stick
has
around
to
for this.
go back to the hotel room with poor Louise, who's also been abandoned by everyone in the show.
She's just like, where'd everybody go?
Yeah, and Buddy and baby June, dainty June, take off.
Wow.
And that brings us to the end of our first of 2 parts of the real story of Mama Rose and her first attempted murder.
Incredible.
Oh my God, I'm so into this.
We can't even say end scene because we're not done. Is this
We're
is
not
this an
done.
intermission?
We're not done.
Intermission, everyone.
This is intermission.
Intermission. We'll be
intermission.
back. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So
Grab
we
your
are tuning-
snacks. Grab your drinks. We'll be back in 2
This
minutes.
is, if you will, this is the first drop of the first glove.
I see what you did there, Olivia. I see what you
Very
did.
nice. Very nice.
For our listeners, as our first 2-parter, this episode will drop 2 weeks from now, maintaining our regular schedule. But I think our goal is for, if you are on our Patreon, if
Yes.
you're a Patreon listener, you're going to have earlier access to this, depending on your tier level. So check out our Patreon to see if you can get access a week early.
Because if you're anything like us, you want to know.
So sad. They literally left
We
her.
have to wait a week.
They left her on December. It was like December 30th. So it was like, Happy New Year, Mama.
Wow.
Here's the hotel bill, and your kids are all gone.
Brutal.
Intermission.
Intermission. And the curtain is coming down
And
slowly.
curtain.
Mama's on stage, just looking stricken. Incredible.
I did it for me! Yeah.
Hey!
For me!
Olivia, this has been incredible. We're not even going to record part 2 for another week. No. Listeners, we will also be on tenterhooks right there along with you until we find out where the hell this wild tale goes.
Oh, Mama.
And it's not the only attempted murder scene. That's all I'm going to say.
What? Spoiler alert. There's more than one?
Is there? I don't know.
You'll have to tune in.
Oh my gosh. I said it before. I'm going to say it again. Writers of Gypsy, the musical, you buried the lead.
What the hell?
Buried
You guys. You guys.
Olivia and I are taking care of it. TM, TM, TM.
They're like, audiences will be interested in strippers. It's a maybe, but also all of this.
Listen,
I've never wanted to play Mama Rose more in my life than this moment.
All of us really could, honestly. We already know we're essentially the same.
Just like, who's up there tonight?
We're effectively the same person. We've now determined we're certainly not too old.
Right.
We're certainly not too young, rather. We're not too young.
We're not too old.
Probably right about perfect.
We could do like a stock casting, a summer stock casting of Mama Rose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who plays June and Louise, because that's not what the story's about.
Somebody get us a venue. Let's make this happen.
It really is Rose's turn.
That's what it'll be. That's what the play's called.
Rose's turn.
Oh my God. Turn. That's what we're gonna have to call it.
I mean, it's basically like they both reach for the gun, and you mix in Mama Rose, and you got yourself a whole new story, kids.
This is a French show waiting to happen. Somebody get on this. Make this happen for us. No one asked for this, but damn it, you're getting it.
Listen, Mama Rose is the hero we didn't know we needed. She's also the hero we deserve. So it's
right.
It's happening.
Amazing. Friends, until next week, we're at intermission. Refill your bevies.
And get your snacks and get ready for more.
That's right.
Murder, mayhem, and maim.
Maim and Mama.
Episode and Mama.
Murder, mayhem, maim, and Mama.
Incredible.
And scene.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Wicked Stage Pod.
Follow us on Instagram and check out our Patreon for more exclusive content.
These deliciously wicked episodes drop every other Friday, so make sure you subscribe or follow and don't get left waiting in the wings.